Greetings mini painters, I'm Will aka the Paint Beast, and in today's video we're going to take a look at layering paint. Layering paint is one of the fundamental methods of miniature painting. It involves the application of multiple layers of paint to build up colour, depth and detail on your models, with each layer affecting the one before. In this video we'll break down the essence of layering paint into three key areas: understanding what layering is, learning how consistency and control helps to build smooth layers, and selecting the right colours to match with your previous steps. Now it's important to know that although layering like this will increase the overall time it takes to paint a miniature, mastering it will allow you to create better textures, highlights, shadows, and overall define your miniature much better. It's also good to know that layering isn't just one technique, but a term that we can use to apply to other techniques. For instance, in the first video in this series, I showed you how to build layers of paint using dry brushing, and the same said for other techniques like glazing. In this case, we are just going to be doing sort of maybe the standard layering style, and that's layering thin layers of acrylic paint to build some highlights. Now that the theory behind layering is out of the way, I just want to take a quick moment to say that if you find this video helpful at all while watching it, please like, comment and subscribe to make sure that you hit the get notifications bell. Every little action like that really helps a new channel like mine to grow, and if you want to support me further, the link to my Patreon is in the description. Now with that being said, let's get over to the painting desk and paint some miniatures. So if you followed my first and my second video, you should be at this stage. Now the first video was all about underpainting, so I had to get a smooth dry brush and build up some transitions of light over the miniature, which you'll see here. The bottom is slightly darker than the top, giving some sort of nice shading. And the second video is all about adding transparent paint to the miniature, so that's stuff like contrast paint and speed paint. As you can see, we've sort of coloured in the miniature, as it were. So today's lesson is going to all be about layering and sort of highlighting. So what is layering? Well, layering is a miniature painting technique that involves building up layers of paint to create a smooth blend or like a highlight. Now I've chosen the colours for this miniature, but you don't have to use these ones. If you've gone for a different colour scheme, obviously you choose the colours that are appropriate. But I've gone for blues that will complement the skin and the scales, a yellow that will complement the sort of non-metallic-ish effect we've got going on here, and then just some sort of like creams and stuff just for the claws and the teeth. With the jade, we're probably going to use some of the same colours that we've got here because we want the miniature to sort of feel cohesive, so it's always good to use some sort of the same colours in different areas just to make things tie together a little bit more. So let's get started. What have we got? Well, it's a bit more simple than the last couple of videos. We've got our paintbrush. Now this paintbrush is if we can zoom in there, focus on that, is a Raphael Kalinsky Sable size 0. This is my favourite brush. Not this one specifically, but the make and the model of the brush. We've got 2 pots of clean water, and that's obviously one is for rinsing all of the paint off the brush, the other one is for giving the brush just another quick rinse just to make sure that we've got everything else off of the brush. We don't want any pigment left in there after layers. We've got some paper towel here. Now that's going to be used for controlling the paint, and it's very, very important when you're layering to control the paint. You don't want it too thick, you don't want it too thin, you almost kind of want the glaze consistency. That's one of the fundamentals of highlighting, and we'll go through that in another video. But we really want to have these smooth transitions, especially on this type of painting where you've built up your map of light underneath transparent paint. Because as you can see here, almost automatically we've created these shadows through the dry brushing and then just applied a sort of glazing layer of transparent paint over the top. Now we don't want to ruin this because this is our, we've worked hard to get here. We only want to be applying a thin layer of paint just to the areas that our brightest. And what that's going to do is that's going to sort of consolidate all of the colour and sort of just give it an extra punch, basically. And now you don't need to do this. You can stop here if you want to just get gaming. But if you're like me and you want to put an extra bit of time into your miniatures to make them really stand out, and you don't mind doing that, then this is definitely the next step for you. So what have we got? We've got the paint, we've got the water, we've got the paper towel, we've got our wet palette. That's very important. It's very useful to have this to thin the paint on. If you don't have a wet palette, there'll be tons of videos out there showing you either how to make one or where to buy one. As for the paint, so we've gone for the sort of skin area, which is this area here in the face. We've gone for Sotek green and Temple Guard blue. This is kind of a nice mid colour for this scheme, and then this will be a sort of extra boost to the colour. We're not going to go over highlighting today, we'll do that in another video. Then for the darker scales, we've gone for more of a blue rather than a turquoisey blue. So we've got Caledor Sky and Teclis blue. Please put in the comments if some of these paints don't exist, because I haven't done my research. I think they all still exist. For the sort of metal area, or the fake metal area, should I say, we're going to go for Phalanx yellow and Dawn yellow. And we're not going to do too much layering in those areas, because we don't want to ruin the effect too much that we've got. We only want to apply a thin layer of paint there, and we'll see when we get to that. And then for like the claws and the eyes and the teeth, we're going to go for some Xandru dust, Shabti bone, and Corax white. Now, if you don't use Citadel paints from Games Workshop, you can find tools online that will help you convert the color names into the brand that you use. I'll try and link one into the description below, and I'll put all of this in the description below as well, so you've got access to it. So where to start? Let's start with the skin, and we're going to take some Sotek green, as you can see here, shake it up well. All paints need good shaking. Open it up. I'm going to put a bit of water on our brush just to start, just to make sure that the bristles aren't too stiff. You're not going to see there. Wick it out on the paper towel, put a dab on our brush, just a drop there, and then put that on the wet palette. I'm going to dip our brush just really quickly into the water, and then just wiggle that around in the paint, and that will give it a bit more of a smooth texture, and it will now be transparent enough so that we don't ruin some of these highlights that have already sort of naturally appeared through the dry brushing and the transparent paint. However, we don't want all of this paint on the brush. It'll be hard to control because there's quite a lot of water in it. What we want to do is just dab it quickly on the paper towel, remove any excess water, and then we can start painting. So I'm going to start from, I usually start from the bottom up, just in case the paint consistency is not quite right. So we're going to look here at where the light looks like it's hitting the foot, and we're just going to drag the brush around that same area, and we're just going to enhance that light just a little bit with this colour. Okay, we'll do that again. Put more colour on our brush, dab some of it off on the paper towel, and then, so I'm trying to get this in focus properly, there we go. And then we're going to just go over the areas that are lightest. Okay, we're going to do that all over the mini. I'm not sure whether I'm going to cut this up yet, but we'll see. I might try and go all the way through. So once you've pretty much, I mean, you'll notice that every minute I'm cleaning my brushes. It's because we don't want any paint to build up in the brush at all. We want it to stay a fresh brush. Sorry if you hear the neighbours in this video. They're being very noisy today for some reason. Right, let's do the other foot. So if we can focus in on that there. There we go. Basically all we're doing is we're just pulling the paint across to match the lightest parts of the sort of colour map or the light map that we've made in the first video, which I will link in the video right now. And we're just going to keep doing this until we've gone all the way around the miniature, or at least all the way around the parts of the miniature that we want to be lightest. Now, it doesn't matter too much. Oh, let's take that off. It doesn't matter too much about these underside bits. You can leave those if you want. I'm going to paint a little bit on there just to accentuate the highlighting that we've got. You can be rough at this stage if you want to. There's no need to be too neat. So the paint on my palette, there's not enough on there, so we're going to wash our brush off, shake the paint up again, and then add some more. I'm going to add 2 drops this time, just so I'm not continuously going back and forth. And because I've added more paint, I need to add more water, so we're going to actually do like a fair good drop, so an actual drop there, you can see that. Then we're just going to mix all that in, just using the tip of the brush. Sort of roll it around, just so we don't get too much up towards the ferrule of the brush. Wash our brush, dab it on the paper towel just to get any excess pigment out. Go back, sort of mix up again, draw out the excess moisture, then go back to the miniature. So I want to concentrate on this sort of the inner thigh part now, and I'm going to put the brush here. I'm going to drag it up towards the light, and then where I want it to be lightest, I'm going to take the brush off the mini. So let's try that again on the lower down, on the scale lower down. We're going to drag it up, take the brush off, and where I take the brush off is going to deposit the most pigment and look lighter. And we're going to do that here on the tummy scales. So up, 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 up. There we go. Like that. Now if you didn't paint in this style, but you're at the stage you want to layer, you don't have to worry so much about this glazing approach. You can just sort of get your paint and then just sort of slap it on there like that. And we'll do that on these sort of lower scales. And because we're making the paint slightly more thin than we usually would, some of that light still shines through. There we go, just like that. So this doesn't look too much at the moment. We're just going to go around the entire miniature on that part, sorry, on the skin parts, and just do exactly the same thing. Just trying to keep within the lightest areas. Make sure my lighting setup's good today. One sec. It's quite hard, all of this miniature painting. Filming. Because your hands are constantly in the way no matter what you do. Right. There. Okay. So here's a good example of what I mean by dragging the brush up into the light area. This sort of shape here has a nice highlight on top already. It's a bit grainy, right, because of the dry brushing. You're never going to get rid of all the dustiness. What we're going to do, we're going to eliminate that by just pulling this up over like that. Just adding that layer of paint just on top. You can work quite quickly if you want. There's no need to be too neat. These are, after all, fictional creatures from a fictional universe that live in, you know, jungles and ruined cities and stuff like that. They're not going to have perfect skin. And all we're doing is we're just putting this paint just in the same places that the light is sitting. Dragging it from bottom to top. Again, like I said, this isn't the only way to layer. If you're doing, say, something with, if you just maybe primed this with a blue and didn't, you know, make all of this sort of shading map with dry brush, you just have one flat colour, you just throw a shade on it, and then you just apply a thicker layer of a thicker layer of paint just directly over the top. Okay, cool. So I think that this is almost done. And if you want to get a bit brighter, you can go over the same areas again, just really quickly. You know, one brush load of paint will be enough for you to do this. And if you make a mistake, you've got enough time just to quickly go back. Like, see there? I've gone into the recess too much next to his neck. I'm just going to draw some of that paint away. Because it's lubricated enough with the water, it stays a little bit dry, a little bit wet, just long enough for me to get my brush in there and move it around. Now you might say, well, you know, water, that definitely keeps everything more wet. Well, it actually makes it dry faster, weirdly enough. If I was using a medium, like this here, lime medium, the paint would take a little bit longer to dry. But I prefer to use water just at the moment because I find that everyone has that. And, well, at least we should all have access to water. And it's just a little bit easier to control because we all know sort of the consistency of water. Right, so I'm now going to do this on the hands. There you go, that's a good angle. Right, so the knuckles, we can just dollop a bit on there. And again, this is made easier because we've got this sort of light map from using the contrast paint and the underpainting. Right, next hand. Let's focus the camera. There you go. Right. There you go. And we can sort of use a bit of this on the scales as well, just to blend the colours into one another. There's a spot that I missed here, which is his sort of bicep muscles at the top. Just here, where, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to touch the miniature then. Another thing you use, you can just wipe it away with your fingers as well. Right. So again, if we can see this, I'm going to try and bring it closer to the camera. There we go. So if you can see, we've got this shape here. We've got a line of colour just here. And what I'm going to do is just drag the paint towards that line. Just keep doing that. This takes a lot of practice, right? Unfortunately, there's no sort of quick fix for it. But as long as you're having fun, it doesn't really matter. There we go. So I think that's it for the main body parts. We're just going to now try and focus on the face. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. Sorry if it goes a bit skew iffy. Right, here we go. There. And this is where it takes a little bit more control. You can kind of see my paper towel in the background here. I'm still going to be using this. And in fact, I'm going to be, if I can focus in on it. I can't. 1 second, sorry. Here we go. Oh dear. There you go. I can't get it. Basically, what we're going to be doing is really controlling the paint on our brush now. What we need is almost no paint on the brush whatsoever, so I'm really dabbing that on the tissue. We're going to zoom into this guy's face. Because it's the area that we want most people to focus on, we need to be a bit more careful here. The body is okay, you know, people will look at that. But what we want is we just want ultimate control over what's going on here. And this will take a few rounds of painting. And each time we're just going to use just a little bit of paint just to build those layers up. We're going to let the previous layer dry. Then once it's dry, we're going to come back and do the same again. And we're still following that pattern of putting the paint on the miniature, and then dragging it to the lightest area. Okay, let's do it on this side as well. So from the bit that we want the darkest, which is going to be up near this scale at the top here. See if I can get a bit there. There you go. And go from just from the top here, and we're going to drag all the way to the bottom, and then release our brush there to deposit the pigment. Now I appreciate this is probably a bit hard to see on camera because the colours are blue and blue. But the next step, you'll really start to see it show. And I'm able to do this fairly quickly nowadays because I've had lots of practice, but trust me, if you keep doing it, you'll get it too. Right, and then back to this side. Just build up those layers. Use the edges of the brush, use the tip of the brush. Move the brush around. Usually I'll be moving this miniature around all over the place, but because I'm filming, I'm finding that a bit more difficult. I'm just going to add some colour to the underside of the arm here. There you go. Cool. So I'll zoom back out a bit. We're now going to use, put that paint away. We're now going to use the next layer. We're going to use Temple Guard Blue. Give it a good shake. This is a new paint. I only got it the other day. Very exciting. Going to put a bit of water on our brush, dab it off onto the paper towel. Again, another load of paint on the brush there, just on the sort of halfway down. Put that on the palette. Dip my brush into the water. Pop that on there. Give that a bit of a mix. Wash the brush in one pot, wash the brush in the second one to get the rest of the pigment out. I tend to roll the brush on the side of the jar as well. Brush on the paper towel, then back to here. Now I can already tell, just through experience, that this is too thin. I need to add more paint. It's too watery. And this is the thing, you'll never get anybody, well, nobody should ever tell you that there's a perfect mix to paint and water. All paints are different consistencies. You just have to experiment, really. Yeah, that looks better. So we're just gonna wash the brush again, put it on the paper towel, mix some into the tip of the brush. You don't really want the, if we can zoom in a bit better, you don't really want the paint to go any further up than sort of like halfway, almost 2/3 of the way, because then it starts to go into the ferrule and it starts to make the brush unusable. So we're going to just put some on our brush, wipe it away on the paper towel, and go back to the miniature. And again, we're going to start the same process. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up to the top. So, and this time you're only going to aim to cover about half of the area that you did before. And this is where layering starts to turn into highlighting. So let's actually, to give you a better representation, let's zoom in a little bit and sort of do it on the chest scales and the stomach scales. So I'm going to grab a bit more paint on our brush, wick off the excess water on the paper towel, and then we're going to start here, and just on the top half we're just going to do the same movements. Now I think I have put too much pigment in this paint because it's just drawn a line there. What we want, go back, I'm just going to put a little bit more water in the paint, mix that up. So it just needs to be a tiny bit thinner. It's just a process of just building layers up and just getting the feel of the paint. There you go, that's better. I'm just going to do that all the way up. And only cover sort of half the area that we did before. You you've got any ridges, you can just sort of run your brush along those as well and put a layer of paint there. Just like on that bit there. And because the paint is quite thin, you can just push it around a little bit. And that's why people like, I think it was Treverion Christopher, who, I don't know if he coined the phrase pigment pushing, but that's kind of what we do. We sort of push the pigment around in this step while we're layering. That just makes it all a bit easier to control because it's thin. We're sort of just pushing that pigment around. And this bit here doesn't look too good, I'm not sure why. So I'm just going to go over that middle bit there again. Sorry, the camera's not focusing too well. Still not proficient at YouTube filmmaking, but like I said in one of my other videos, getting better. There you go. And then just for good luck, I'm just going to put some more at the top. Now this isn't by no means the best that I can do, which I hope it doesn't come, it doesn't show that I promise I'm a competent painter. It's just hard to do on camera. This is a good way of building up texture as well, sort of like just moving the brush around like that. And here you go, we're going to just add a smaller layer there, just on the outside. No need to go too heavy. Remember, you've got this light map underneath, so you want to leave some of the shading underneath there. Cool. This is looking alright actually. Pretty happy with it. I think these scales down here look a bit weird, so we're just going to put some more on them like that. Just make it look more like the rest of them. Excellent. Cool, so we're up to here. Again, you might want to do this, you might want to do 2 layers of this just to really enhance the colour. There you go. Always going back to the paint pot, sorry, the water pots, cleaning the brush, and then using that paper towel just to control the paint on there. Because if you've got too much paint on here, it won't, it will pool in odd places. You'll kind of make it like a wash. You don't really want to make it like a wash at this stage. Now I think the paint is starting to dry on the palette because it's starting to make these streaks on the miniature. And what we want to do is just put a tiny bit more water in there, make it a tiny bit thinner. We might even have to put more paint on the palette, but we'll see how that goes. Okay. Again, like I said, this is pretty rough at the moment, and it will all come together in probably the next video where we do some highlighting. But at the moment, we're just getting some layers on there quickly. My aim in these videos is to show you the entire process, which means I have to paint fairly quickly, because if not, we'd be here for like 4 hours. Which is why I'm going quite fast. But you don't have to. In fact, it's much more enjoyable not to. Right, where are we? Here. There may be bits that I've missed in this video that I might just go back and paint for the showcase at the end, but they'll just use the same processes that I've used. Nothing will be missed. So you see here I'm adding layers, but they're lines just to emulate the scales. Just adding a bit of texture in there. There we go. So if I don't speed this video up, I might just put some music over the top if I'm not talking about anything particularly interesting. I know that I tend to waffle on sometimes. I don't want to bore you, but sometimes there's some information, some nuggets of information that you may not know through, that sort of come out of my mouth just while I'm painting. And what I'd like to say right now is actually thank you everyone who's stuck around to this point in the video, and thank you for your support over the last few months. I didn't at the time of filming, it's probably about a month after the release of my first video, so I never expected to have 2,500 subscribers in the first month of my YouTube, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. So thank you to anyone who's watching this, and thank you to you if you've also watched the first videos. It's really appreciated. I love doing this. This is kind of my, this has been my whole world for quite a while now, and it's nice to share that with people. Okay, so that's sort of the main body area done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go on to the next colour, and then off camera I'll just I'll do all of the details, just so I'm not boring you for too long. So I'm aware that we're already half an hour through this video, and I don't want to make it too long. So what have we done so far? We've built up 2 layers. We've built up a layer of Sotek green and a layer of Temple Guard blue just over the sort of more fleshy areas. We're now going to move on to the scales. Let me zoom out a bit. There we go. Now going to move on to the scales. We're going to use Caledor Sky and Techless Blue, just in the same pattern. So I won't take too long on this. So let's shake it up. As you can hear, I've got a ceramic ball in this one, just to shake the paint up a little bit better. Now I chose this because it's more of a true blue than the 2 we've already used. It's not focusing. There you go. It's more of a true blue than this. These are sort of more turquoisey. They've got more green in it. This is like a standard blue that you see in your colour wheel. So again, same thing. Washing the brush. Get some of the paint. Pop that on the palette. Get a bit of water from your clean water. Sorry, that was the dirty water now. So get a bit of water from the clean water. Mix that in with the paint, just to make it slightly more lubricated. And we're going to go to the scales. Which scale should I do first? Let's show you on the bigger scales, so the back ones. We'll show you on the back scales, and then we'll show you on the smaller ones, and then I'll take this away and paint the rest in the same style. So we're going to focus on this one here. There we go. So we're going to take this, and we're going to take the same approach and just pop the paint on there in a flat block of colour, but drawing towards the edge where the light colours are. So using that map of colour just to guide our brush a bit. We do the same on the next scale up. There you go. We're just going to run along the edge like that. I think the paint might be slightly too thin, but we're going to live with it for now. We're going to do the same up here. There you go. Yeah, it is too thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to the palette. Just pop a bit more paint on the same drop there. Just make that slightly more thick. Oh, wrong way. There you go. Right. The lighting's not great here. Sorry everyone, fussing again. Alright, there we go. So let's take this ridge of scales here. We're just going to do the same. Draw that paint in. So we're lucky here that the texture of these scales is sort of lines like sort of on Tyranid models. But I'll show you how I do this on the smaller scales in a second. There you go. So that's looking all right. Right, and we're going to choose the scales probably on the arm, because they're probably small enough to demonstrate this next bit. Right, we're going to use the same paint, exactly the same consistency, and we're going to use the map of light that we've already got, that we talked about, to, oh, come on. Why is this not zooming in? That's better. There you go. Right, I've got to be really steady now. This one here, we're just going to put it up to the top. Because and like I said, because the paint is thin, it's still showing through some of that light map that we've got from the underpainting. We're just gonna sort of run our brush along these guys just to get a bit of enhancement of colour on there. So put a layer of colour on, make it look a bit more striking. And we're just going to go from the bottom to the top. On these scales, we're just going to go to the edge. And don't worry if a little bit of colour goes into the sort of recesses, that's fine. This is kind of a natural shape. Right, where we've come down to this bit here, where we've got a transition between the lighter blue and the darker blue, we're going to thin the paint down a little bit more, and this is kind of a sneak peek into glazing. We're going to, can you see that there? It's on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to take an extra drop of water and mix that in just at the edge here. You can see now that that is like a wash. I'm going to take that and we're going to wick most of it out of the brush. And then back here, in this area. See if I can get focused. There you go. Which part is it? Is it this one here? Right, we're going to go from the bottom of this muscle all the way up to the top. I'm going to keep doing that. So we're going to let that dry now for a couple of seconds. You can blow on it. Get a bit more of the thinner paint on your brush. And now that layer is dry, that layer of glazing, see, this is a good example how one thing isn't always just one thing. You can have layers of glazing, you can have layers of dry brushing, which we did in the first video. I'm just going to keep doing that, and what this does is it really nicely blends the two layers together. So it gives you like a bit of a transition. Don't know if that's apparent yet, but it will be by the end of the video. There you go. So you can start to see it a bit more now because the colours are building up. Cool, so I'm going to leave that as the first colour for that one. We're now going to put some Techless blue over the top as a second layer for the dark scales. So just going to follow the same routine we've been doing for the rest of the video. Put a bit on the palette, mix it in with a tiny bit of water, clean the brush just so there's no horrible build-up of pigment, and then put a bit on the brush, control it on the paper towel, and let's find our big scales again. I think I need to work on my lighting setup, so I'll do that for next video. I'm very sorry. Right, we're going to go for this scale here, and this is almost like a highlighting step, but not, because we're going to cover edge highlighting in the next video. We are going to, oh, yeah, sorry, the birds are playing up. I have birds, so I can hear them in the background. Right, we're just going to go again like 50% of the area. We're just going to cover that. So I'm finding it hard here to get focused. Come on, Will. These people have got lives to get back to. Right. Here you go. Just going to put a little bit on these ones in here. There you go. wash the brush. You want to wash your brush pretty much every minute or so. Don't leave paint on there for too long. It'll ruin your brush, especially if you've got nice brushes. Right. There we go. Cool. Okay, we're going to do that on the arm as well. We're going to just on the sort of top half of the scales on this one. It's all gone quiet. Well, you can probably hear the neighbours are still upstairs having a good time. There we go. Okay, so you can kind of see how that's building up more colour there. I'm just going to go back to this glazing part and we're going to add a bit more of a lighter glaze over the top. Again, it's all about building layers. Come on, camera. So it's the middle part here, you see? That's where we did before. You can see the difference between the two areas. Right, we're going to take some of our Techless blue, thin it down a bit more, control the paint on the paper towel, and then we're going to start halfway up this time. So we're going to start here, just pull that like that. Obviously, this is a lighter colour, so it's going to look a bit lighter. There you go. So hopefully we can see now, if we zoom out a bit more, you see the difference that's made. Doesn't look too good on camera, but trust me, it's there. Cool. Again, I'll go away and I'll finish up that the same thing I did here all over the miniature. And in the meantime, we're going to move on to the yellow, just to show you how we do that. So we're going to give our brushes a good rinse for this, because we don't want any of that blue in there, because of course if you mix blue and yellow you get green. So yeah, just take all of the moisture, all of the pigment out of that brush. Right, let's start with a bit of phalanx yellow. Shake it up. Dip your brush in the water, put a little bit on the palette. So because I dipped my brush in the water, that's probably enough water on the brush already to thin it down to the right consistency. Again, I know that because of experience. I've used this paint quite a lot before. It's one of my favourites. Okay. Let's get some on the brush, wick it off on the paper towel, and then, oi. So we're going to do this on this sort of like face part of it here. Let's focus there. Brilliant. So again, we're going to go, this time we're going to work from the highest point to the darkest point, but in like short strokes, because I don't want to damage too much of this colour that we've already built up through the dry brushing. I just want to sort of do a nice layer of highlighting. I'm going to put a little bit more water in the paint. I think it's slightly too thick. There we go. We're going to do that layer. This is more of a glaze now. But it still fits into layering, because like I said before, earlier, you can glaze, you can do layers of glazing. It's all the same principles. There you go. All right. Okay. So it's there on the eye. Excellent. Cool. We're going to do that again with the next yellow. So let me grab that. So you can see what's going on here. This is Dawn Yellow. I've not used this one before, so I hope it's Hope it's good enough. Shake it up. Ooh, snap. Wash the brush. Put a bit of water on the brush. Dip that into the paint. Put the paint on the palette. Give that a mix. This one probably got quite a lot of white pigment in it, so let's just put an extra drop of water in there. Make it really thin. We don't want this too thick. We only want to really be glazing the area that we've only just touched. So let's go zoom back in to here. We're going to take, again, sort of maybe 50% of that area. And we're just going to go from the top and we're just going to work our way slightly backwards, still drawing the brush from here to there. Just do that on the tips, like that. Yeah, there you go. That's a little bit there, but I'm going to wipe that away with my finger. There you go. This is kind of more highlighting at this stage, actually, which we'll cover more in the next video. There you go. So that gives it a bit more of a sort of reflective look. And again, I'll carry on with that off camera and show it to you in the showcase. Now the final part of painting this video, painting this miniature in this video, I'm going to show you just the claws and the teeth. We're not going to worry about the eyes yet, we'll do that in the next video in the detailing. So why is this slightly different? Well, it's because we're not going to be using the light map for these. We're just going to be putting on a straight flat base coat layer and then a highlight. So we're going to take our Xandri dust, which is one of my favourite sort of tan colours. It's got really good coverage. We'll take some. We don't have to water this down too much at all. I'm just going to put some on the palette. In fact, we're just going to clean our brush, pop it on the paper towel, and then mix whatever water is remaining into the paint. Again, just wipe it on the paper towel before you put it to the miniature. And this is going to be the base coat of our claws and teeth. And we are not going to worry about any of the colours that are underneath this. We're just going to add it straight on to the mini. This might take two coats, two thin coats, which is a well-known miniature painting hobby phrase. God, this focusing is terrible. I'm very sorry. How do I get in here correctly? Just like that. Brilliant. So we're just going to make sure that there's none of that blue or other colours shining through. This is a completely opaque layer. There we go. If you need to go over it twice, do so. Right. Our next colour will be the Shabti bone. This is essentially this is a giant animal, right? A crocodile. I'm sure they have thoughts and feelings of their own, but it's not going to be a pure white. Not going to be a pure white talon. And because this is not our base coat, it's our layer, we're going to add a bit more water to this one just to make it slightly thinner. And we're just going to do the same process that we've done with the rest of the layering on this mini. We're going to just apply from the back to the front, just that layering sort of almost glazing process, just on the top. As you can see there's a good amount of Xandri dust showing through at the bottom there. Oh, fun little thing. Didn't realise that this little guy here is a frog. Neat. Anyway, we're just going to do that another time. Can't tell if this is focused it up. There you go. Just going to do that. Just again, right on the end of it. Drag the brush from top to bottom. There. And then, just as a final thing, because we can finish these talons off now, we don't really want to come back to them. They're kind of an insignificant detail. We're going to take our Corax white, again take a bit out of the pot, put it on there. We're going to use the clean water just to add some extra liquid to it, make it a bit more controllable, using the paper towel. There. Right. And then this will pretty much only take one brush stroke for each, just right on the end there. Let's kind of just work it a little bit if you need to. There you go. Can't tell what's in focus and what's not, but there. Right, so what have we covered? We've gone through layering for all of the different colours on this miniature, other than this stone actually. So let's quickly just add a bit in there. We said we were going to use the same colours we used for the skin, so I'm just going to put I think just Sotek green on for that one. And we're just going to use the exact same method. I'm going to use some from our palette. Just going to run the brush along the top there like that, and then on sort of just run it over the top, almost a bit like over brushing. Just here. There. I'm just going to leave it in that colour for this actually, because we don't want to make it look too much like the skin. We want to have like an element of the skin in there, but we want them to be different ultimately. Let's put some on this, or like club on the tail as well. There you go. Excellent. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and just do all those steps again, all over the miniature, and I'll show you in a sec what it looks like. But as you can see, that's actually quite a cool effect. Now we've used the contrast map, as it were, to apply our highlights quite easily. So there we go. I've used all of the things that I was telling you about in this video to finish the layering. It's taken me an extra 52 minutes and 17 seconds. I know that because I managed to listen to my favourite album start to finish while doing the rest of these steps. And this is the end result. So I'll talk about that a bit more right now, and also sort of go through what the next video will entail. And I think the next video is probably going to be the last video in this sort of short series, so thank you in advance for watching it. Thank you for accompanying me on the exploration to this realm of layering paint. I hope this gives you some valuable insight into the art of enhancing your miniatures using layers of vibrant colour. As with any skill, mastering these techniques requires dedication and practice. Embrace the experimentation and make mistakes, because you'll learn from it. And don't feel like you have to stick with the colours that I've used here. Go out there and find a paint scheme that works for you. Remember, the journey to mastery is as important and rewarding as the destination itself, so don't hesitate to immerse yourself into the joy of experimenting with your paints and practicing new skills. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so you don't miss out on future tutorials and videos. And if you want to support me further, you can go over to my Patreon, which is linked in the description below. There you'll find some extra content and some exclusive goodies, and you'll get to join our community on Discord that we call the Paint Herd. Speaking of patrons, thank you to everyone on my right. I'd like to just give a special shout out to the people in the Beastigore tier. And the Beastigores are Andrew Maystone, Andy Smith, Gerardo Lopez Gill, Jason Ozawagosh, Jeremy Williams, MC Van Wyck, Mark Pelotan, Neil Buxton, Nicholas Paredes Carvajal, Rob Hassel, and Stephen. Until next time, unleash the paint beast within and get painting that plastic.